Halloween has always been painted as a night of harmless fun. Kids running from door to door, pillowcases filling with candy, parents chatting on porches. But underneath the costumes and decorations, there's something unnerving. On a night where every street is crowded with masked figures, it's impossible to know which of them are there for the same reason as you, and which ones aren't. Back in the late 2000s, two teenagers decided to go trick-or-treating one last time before they gave it up for good. They weren't little kids anymore, but the nostalgia and the free candy pulled them out into the cold October night. Their neighborhood looked like something out of a Halloween postcard. Houses glowing with carved pumpkins, fake cobwebs strung across bushes, the sound of laughter and shouts echoing through the air. They started the night carefree, moving from house to house, stuffing candy into pillowcases and joking about how this would be the last time. But soon, something subtle crept into the rhythm of the night. Each time they left a porch, walked down a driveway, or crossed a street, they noticed the same figure not far behind them. It was a tall man in a plain hoodie, his face covered by a cheap, flimsy plastic mask. The kind you could pick up at a gas station for a couple of dollars. He didn't carry a candy bag. He didn't knock on doors. He never ran or joined groups of kids. He just walked, slow, deliberate, always keeping the same distance. Close enough to be noticed, but far enough that they couldn't confront him without making a scene. At first, they told themselves it was nothing. Maybe another older teen, maybe a parent keeping an eye on younger kids. But the more they moved through the neighborhood, the stranger it felt. The man was always there, at the corner when they turned, across the street when they stopped. Just a shape in the periphery, blending into the Halloween chaos. After nearly 2 hours, their pillowcases were heavy and their legs tired. They were ready to head home. Instead of looping back through the busy streets, they decided to take a shortcut. A narrow wooded trail that cut behind several houses and came out just a block from where they lived. In the daylight, the trail was nothing special. A strip of dirt between tall trees, littered with fallen leaves. But at night, with only a thin sliver of moonlight filtering through the branches, it felt much darker. Their sneakers crunched against the leaves, the only sound breaking the silence of the woods. For the first few minutes, they felt relief. They hadn't seen the masked man in a while, and without the noise of the neighborhood, it felt like they'd finally shaken him. But that comfort didn't last long. Somewhere behind them, faint at first, came the steady sound of leaves crunching under someone else's steps. They froze, listening. The sound stopped. When they started walking again, it returned, in rhythm, always just behind them. And then, as they glanced back, their stomachs dropped. There he was, the same tall figure in the hoodie and mask, standing just far enough down the trail to be cloaked in shadow. He didn't move quickly. He didn't lunge or chase. He only walked at the same pace, following them deeper into the woods. The silence of the trail made every step echo. Their own breathing grew louder, ragged, as panic set in. They tried to speed up. So did he. They slowed to a near stop. So did he. Always keeping that distance, never breaking the unnerving rhythm. What terrified them most wasn't just that he was following. It was how calm he seemed. As if he had all the time in the world. As if the trail belonged to him. The Halloween decorations, the laughter, the safety of the crowd, all of it felt far away now. The woods had become his stage, and they were the only audience. When the trail finally opened up to their neighborhood street, they broke into a run. The sight of their own house, porch light glowing warmly, pumpkins still burning by the door, felt like the only safe place in the world. They sprinted across the yard, up the steps, and slammed the door behind them. Their hearts pounded in their ears as they pressed their backs against the door, waiting for the sound of footsteps on the porch. But none came. When they finally gathered the courage to look through the window, the street outside was empty. No figure on the trail, No shadow across the street, just the quiet glow of porch lights and the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. He was gone. For the rest of the night, they sat awake, every creak of the house making them jump. They never told their parents, they never reported it, and in time, it became one of those memories that stayed unspoken, a story they only brought up years later when they realized how easily it could have gone differently. The truth is, no one ever knew who the man was, or what his intentions might have been. Maybe he was just a bored teenager playing a cruel prank. Maybe he was something far worse. A predator using Halloween as cover, blending into a night when strangers in masks are invisible. And that's the scariest part. On Halloween, when every street is filled with costumes and shadows, it's impossible to know which ones are harmless, and which ones are watching you silently, waiting for you to take a shortcut home. On Halloween night, everyone expects to hear knocks at the door. Costumes, laughter, footsteps on the porch. It's part of the charm. But sometimes, those knocks aren't from children looking for candy. They're from something else entirely. This story takes place in a small town in the Midwest, around 2011. A woman had decided to stay home alone that Halloween while her husband worked the late shift. Their neighborhood was filled with decorations, kids roaming from door to door, and the occasional echo of distant fireworks. She had carved a jack-o'-lantern, set out a bowl of candy, and settled into the evening routine of handing out treats. For the first few hours, everything was normal. Groups of kids came and went, their costumes ranging from store-bought superheroes to makeshift ghosts. Around 9 o'clock, though, the stream of trick-or-treaters began to thin. Porch lights clicked off one by one, the streets quieting as families retreated inside. That's when she noticed something strange. She heard another knock at the door, faint, almost hesitant. But when she opened it, no one was there. Just the empty street, leaves blowing across the pavement, and the faint smell of smoke from distant firecrackers. She assumed it was just kids playing a prank. She went back inside, but a creeping unease lingered. The house seemed quieter now. The laughter outside had faded, replaced by long stretches of silence, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional settling creak of the walls. Another hour passed. The candy bowl sat nearly empty, and the woman had just started tidying up when she heard it again. Not a knock this time, but a sound, the faint creak of the back door, as if it had shifted against its hinges. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't used the back door all evening. Slowly, she walked through the house, every board under her feet groaning louder than usual. When she reached the kitchen, she froze. The back door was open just a few inches. Cold air drifted in, carrying with it the smell of wet leaves. On the linoleum floor were faint, muddy shoe prints. They led in from the yard and stopped right inside the doorway, as if someone had stepped into the house, and then vanished deeper inside. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to believe she had forgotten to lock it, that maybe the wind had pushed it open. But the footprints told another story. Someone had been here, maybe still was. The woman bolted the door shut, backed into the living room, and dialed the police with shaking hands. As she waited, every corner of the house seemed alive with shadows. She thought she heard the faint creak of the basement stairs, a slow shift of wood as if weight was pressing down on it. But when she strained to listen, the house went silent again. The police arrived 20 minutes later, lights flashing silently outside the window. 2 officers swept the house, room by room. At first, they found nothing. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry. But then they opened the basement door. What they found made the woman's blood run cold. In the corner of the unfinished basement were signs that someone had been staying there. An old blanket, a half-empty water bottle, food wrappers, and footprints leading in and out through the back door. Whoever it was had likely been slipping into the house for days, maybe longer, hiding during the day and moving through the rooms at night. The thought was unbearable. While she'd been handing out candy upstairs, someone else had been watching from below, listening, waiting. The officers searched the neighborhood but never found the intruder. For weeks afterward, the woman couldn't sleep without leaving every light in the house on. Every creak, every groan of the old wood felt like footsteps in the dark. To this day, she doesn't know if the knocks she heard that night were just kids playing a prank, or if it was the person in her basement, testing whether she was paying attention. Halloween is the one night when strangers blend in without question. Masks, costumes, unfamiliar faces drifting from street to street. Nobody thinks twice. That's what makes this story so disturbing, because sometimes the scariest thing on Halloween isn't what's at your doorstep, it's what's waiting just down the street. This happened in the early 2000s in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Every Halloween, kids filled the streets of Maple Street, darting across lawns in costumes, pillowcases dragging heavy with candy. Parents clustered in small groups, chatting at the ends of driveways. For years, it was a tradition that felt safe, almost nostalgic. But one year, kids began noticing something odd. Parked at the very end of the street was an unmarked van. No decorations, no lights, no signs of participation. Just a faded, dirty white van sitting under a flickering streetlight. At first, nobody paid much attention. Plenty of cars lined the road on Halloween. But as the night went on, kids whispered about it. Some swore they saw a figure in the driver's seat. Others said the van doors had shifted open slightly, then closed again. It wasn't part of the decorations, and it wasn't anyone the neighbors recognized. As the night grew later and the streets began to empty, curiosity got the better of one boy. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old, dressed in a homemade vampire costume with a plastic pumpkin bucket in his hand. His friends dared him to walk up to the van and tap on it. He hesitated at first, then began to walk. The street seemed to quiet around him. The laughter and footsteps faded, replaced by the crunch of his shoes on the leaves. As he reached the van, he noticed the back doors weren't fully shut. They were cracked open just an inch, darkness pressing through the gap. He leaned closer, maybe to prove his bravery, maybe to satisfy his own curiosity. That's when the doors creaked wider, slowly. From the shadows inside, a man's voice whispered, not cheerful, not playful. Just one phrase, low and deliberate, offering him candy. The boy's blood ran cold. He dropped his pumpkin bucket and bolted back toward his friends, screaming. By the time any adults rushed over, the van doors had slammed shut. Seconds later, the engine roared to life, and the van sped down the street, vanishing into the night. The police were called, but by the time they canvassed the area, the van was gone. No license plate number, no identifying marks. Just vague descriptions and the terrifying account of a boy who nearly became its victim. In the weeks that followed, parents on Maple Street became hyper-aware of every strange car that parked nearby. Some swore they saw the van again, lurking in different parts of town, though no one ever caught it long enough to confirm. For years afterward, the story lingered. Kids who grew up there remember the warnings. Don't go near parked vans on Halloween. Don't walk alone. Don't take candy from anyone but neighbors you trust. Whether it was a predator looking for cover in the chaos of Halloween or something else entirely, no one ever found out. What remains is the chilling reminder that on a night built around strangers and masks, danger doesn't have to hide in the shadows. Sometimes it sits right in plain view, waiting for the right moment to open its doors.